Kathy, you ready? Councilwoman Bevins? Yes, Chris is ready. All right, back to budget hearings and office planning. And why don't we turn it over to our auditor, Peter, to take it from here.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon. The Department of Planning budget analysis is presented under tab 12 in your books. The proposed FY 2020 budget for the Department of Planning totals $8.2 million, an increase of approximately $776,000 or 10.4% over the FY 2019 budget. The general fund portion of the budget increases up by approximately $382,000 or 5.1%, primarily due to increased funding for the contractual operation of the county's homeless shelters. The new FY 2020 Maryland Census Grant Program accounts for the $394,000 special fund budget. This analysis identifies one potential operating budget reduction of $75,000 based on the department's history of reverting unexpended general funds. Since FY 2014, the department has ended the fiscal year with unexpended general funds ranging in amount from approximately $78,000 to $151,000. The Office of Budget and Finance estimates that approximately $190,000 will be unexpended in FY 2019. The potential reduction allows for requested funds for CZMP. This analysis identifies the following significant changes: a new census grant program, an increase of funding for homeless shelter contracts, and $1 million for bikeways and pedestrian improvements. Other discussion issues include the CZMP, Master Plan 2030, the Pikesville Commercial District Study, and adequate public facilities. At this time, I would like to turn it over for discussion.
All righty. Floor is yours.
Good afternoon. Pete Gutwell, Director of Planning. This is my very first day on the job, so be easy on me. So I brought with me a good team. Jeff Mayhew, Deputy Director. I brought Marcia Williams, Colleen Mahoney, and Amy Monte. I'm still learning Monte. I'm still learning names, so bear with me. We're here to answer your questions. They went over the overview. Do you have any specific questions for us? Or do you want me to go through the...
I mean, perhaps if you could briefly go through the auditor questions and touch base, and then if the council wants more detail, we will follow up on it.
All right, so the first questions were centered around the census and the outreach efforts that will go on there. Certainly that is the basis for formula funding for a whole range of different things, so it's very important that we get a complete count and we get all the different diverse populations accounted for, including those that are non-English speaking, underprivileged, homelessness, those kinds of individuals. So we will be putting together, with the administration, a strategic plan to do a lot of outreaching efforts, meeting with community organizations, civic organizations, and the like to make sure we are reaching those populations. This is the first time the census will start moving towards an online type of operation, so we have to make sure we get a hold of the individuals that are not feel comfortable utilizing technology and or do not have the ability to reach to utilize that technology. So we will be doing an extra effort to make sure we reach those populations, and that is sort of answering some of the questions associated with the census. We'll be creating brochures, flyers, attending civic events, and creating informational sessions throughout the next year or so. In terms of some of the questions related to our homelessness and 10-year plan to prevent and reduce homelessness, certainly the county is following in our previous document, we had 7 strategies that were outlined in the plan. We're following the Housing and Urban Development Guidelines, and in some of those statistics that we are reaching and have meeting those goals outlined in that 10-year plan. We've increased the number of shelter beds over the past several years. We've added a significant increase to the exits, to the people exiting these homeless shelters and getting permanent housing, ranging from 27% in FY11 to almost 79% in FY19. The third set of questions were focused on the bicycling impaired issues and how we will utilize that $1 million. The $1 million will go to essentially 3 other grants. It will allow us to leverage 3 other possible grants associated with the state abilities to fund those implementation programs and those projects. These applications are essentially due later on in this year, so we'll know more of once we get those applications squared away, how much we can leverage that $1 million towards those other larger grants. Typically, from my understanding, Baltimore County has gone for the low-hanging grants that didn't require match. Now we're going after larger state grants, which allow us to leverage that because we have that $1 million. Second set of questions were about the CZMP and how we're going to do the notifying and outreach efforts. Certainly, there's code requirements to doing the mail outs to the adjacent property owners, posting requirements, but also the department will start attending community meetings using technology from a GIS-based technology to inform citizens, let them understand what applications are out there, so they don't have to come into the office and do that. They can sit at their homes and look at all the different issues from online. And we will also be working with the Office of Communication and doing press releases and those kinds of things, and setting out a strategy to make sure everybody's aware that the CCMP process is underway and what they need to do. The next set of questions related to the Pikesville Commercial Revitalization Plan. The feedback was positive. I wasn't there, but that's what I hear. The feedback was positive. The planner currently that was assigned to that is outreaching to the business owners as a follow-up and trying to establish a work group to develop sort of an implementation plan. The department continues to work with other revitalization districts in terms of getting their designations for main streets, sustainable communities, possibly an A&E district for some of these. This is ways in which working with these commercial revitalization districts to levy tax credits, state tax credits programs. We also, the department offers architectural services to help and move and create and implement some of the commercial revitalization district plans. Last but not least was the question regarding adequate public facilities. Obviously, the department meets with the other agencies and departments related to the adequate public facility ordinances, looks at the ways that they're doing things, what are the informations of deficiencies associated with those. The basic services map obviously is something that's put together through the help of different agencies and departments. And as it relates to specifically the school board, that we meet regularly with the school board and developing the pupil yield generation. It's sort of done with we provide the information on new development updates, what's going on throughout the county. They overlay that with their population based on different housing types and develop a pupil yield factor. This is updated regularly, and it was done, I believe, about 2 years ago. So those were the highlights of the questions by the auditor.
Councilman Marks.
Thank you very much. I have 3 questions. The first dealing with the census. So this council will redistrict in the summer of 2021, I believe. So we would have all that census information back when? Approximately when?
Sure, you should. My recollection is closer to 2 years when we get that. It's up to 2 years, but no.
The redistricting data should be available at the end of 2020.
Okay.
The more detailed stuff is what takes a long time, the housing, the income, but the location, population, and age should be available towards the end of the year.
And in the last redistricting, it's hard to believe it's been almost 10 years. 3 of us were around. There was a dedicated staff member who helped us with that process. You don't see any change in that plan, right? Okay. Second question, the circulator. Would the circulator study for Towson be funded through the planning department or through Public Works?
I would say Public Works. We haven't had those discussions.
Okay.
But we would be willing partners to help with data and outreach for that any kind of study effort.
Okay. And third and finally, should the council approve the creation of the Deputy Transportation Director, is there any thought of moving bicycle and pedestrian activities under Public Works, or do we envision it staying within planning?
We're
Still discussing it?
yes.
Yeah, my very first bill on the council, when Councilman Quirk was a co-sponsor, created the Pedestrian Bicycle Advisory Committee, and I know some of us have been working very hard to try to advance those interests, and I do think that is one area of the budget that where we've done a really nice job of moving those interests forward. So my personal opinion is that bicycle and pedestrian coordinators should be in Public Works. That's where they should be working with our highway engineers to integrate all of these modes. Thank you.
Councilman, if I may, the funding for the transportation or for the circulator study is within the capital budget in Department 205 under Public Works, and it should be undertaken by the new secretary for transportation. The new deputy director, sorry.
So the new deputy director is going to be
Part of that, yes.
Okay.
Councilman Patoka?
Thank you, Mr. Gutwald and Mr. Mayhew, and all the reps from planning. Dr. Branch was in here earlier, and we had questions, at least I had questions about homelessness. And so in the commercial districts, in Pikesville and in Reisterstown, we have several homeless people that are living on the street. And I asked Dr. Branch, I said, I don't really know how to address this, and asked for his assistance. And he said, well, wait until planning gets in here and ask them, was his quote. And so I was a little bit miffed because, as I think many know, I've been in the planning field for many years, and I don't recall a planning department having such a hands-on. I understand maybe being involved in developing a plan to eliminate homelessness, but almost in a clinical social worker way, I don't recall a planning department having that role. So first I'll ask you, what do I do about there's 2 homeless people living in the commercial district in Pikesville and 1 in Reisterstown. And I don't know exactly how to address it, and I would also be interested in comments as to why that what I believe is a traditional social service or human service activity is located in the planning department. And actually, Mr. Gutwald, when you were in Harford County, did you have a homeless department, homelessness?
It was under community development, so it was a separate department.
How about in Annapolis?
Yes, it was within my department.
It wasn't planning?
Yes, it was
Interesting.
planning.
Okay, well.
Small group, but in the city of Annapolis, we did leverage a lot of the county resources, so to deal with homelessness. Yeah.
So how does the planning department deal with helping these 2 homeless people that are living in Pikesville, in the commercial district, and also in the Reisterstown commercial district? How do we do that?
I mean, I would go from my Annapolis experience, but I
don't know that I need a mic. I could probably talk loud enough. But hi, Colleen Mahoney. I'm the Chief of Policy Planning and Administration for the Neighborhood Improvement portion of Planning Department. And homeless services is one of the activities that falls under my division. To answer the first question about the homeless individuals, we do have a partnership with an organization called Prologue, and Prologue has a homeless street outreach team that goes all throughout the county. Most often I get calls actually here in Towson about individuals who are between the library garage and the Towson campus, and as well as Prologue has a outreach center, a day program over on Baltimore Avenue. Thank you. We always refer to it as 609. That's why. And if we can talk afterwards, and if you want to give me some more information, I can have Prologue go out and talk to the individuals. I mean, obviously, one of the things is that there are many reasons why people are living on the streets, and what Prologue does is they go out and they try to establish a relationship with these individuals, talk to them about why they're homeless, because there are many different reasons why they may be homeless, and encourage them to come in to make those connections and find shelter, and where we can.
So we
do that.
outsource it, is what, I guess,
Yes,
the short
correct.
answer.
Mm-hmm, yep.
Yeah. Perhaps someday we can call 311. That, you may not have been here for that discussion.
Right. And then to answer the second question, why...
And then the police former jail.
Oops, sorry. Why homelessness and planning? As many people may
Yes.
remember, originally it was the Office of Community Conservation, and homelessness was part of that.
Oh, I see.
And along with homelessness, both at the state level and the federal level, homelessness is considered a housing issue first. And so therefore, many of the funding streams come through the Housing and Urban Development monies, the Department of Housing and Community Development at the state level. That's where many of the homeless funding sources are. And so that's where homelessness has been tied with our federal housing and community development monies.
I always viewed it as a mental health issue, and so...
It obviously has many
it's a kind of
components.
between. One last question.
I was just going to add, in the city of Annapolis, it was associated with affordable housing, and they leveraged funds from both the developer, privately funded, and as well as CDBG money to provide homes for all types of different organizations. So.
One more comment on the census. When we do begin outreach for the census, I know that the Latino community is historically undercounted, and we have resources in the 2nd District office to help with outreach to the Latino community, and I'd be happy to work with the planning department and other agencies in terms of outreach. That's it. Thanks.
Councilman Jones.
Yes, I wanted to make a couple of comments, and I wanted I may need some help from you in terms of some of the things I'm about to say, because my colleague said that he always looked at homelessness as a mental health issue. And I have to admit, once upon a time, I too probably felt that way. But one of the things I realized, having done a lot of research on the subject, many of folks who end up in the homeless shelters are not people that we typically see like on Ricerstown Road with a shopping cart and all their things and seem like they're out of it. Many people that end up in our homeless shelters have jobs, work every day, but they're barely making ends meet. And then when something happens, normally maybe two things. Kid gets sick, I can't go to work, so I don't get paid. My car breaks down, it's an expensive repair, and I don't have this discretionary or big savings account. Next thing you know, they're being set out. And I would urge you to check out some of these family shelters where we have families there. So I keep these things in mind whenever we start talking about raising the cost of living in Baltimore County, because there are many people that are living on the edge, and it doesn't take much to send them into that tailspin, and then they end up being homeless with a family working 40 hours a week. So I would ask, I remember once upon a time I read this thing about how many homeless people there were on any given day. Can you share some of that information, and can you speak to some of the things I just said in terms of who these homeless people are and how they become homeless?
So there are a wide variety.
For the people that are looking from home,
Okay.
I guess.
So there are a wide variety of reasons that anyone can become homeless. And in fact, some of the examples you gave of people who, I like to say those are the easy people to deal with oftentimes, because if it's just that you had one medical incident and one medical bill that, yes, it's a bad situation to be in, to choose between one paying the hospital and your rent. That is something that we now have programs in place to help people over that kind of one hurdle experience, right? We have a shelter diversion program that the county has funded for a number of years, and in those cases, when somebody calls, we have a central intake number for homeless services for those trying to go into homeless shelters. When they call, there are a series of questions that they go through to talk to that individual and find out what types of services they need. Are you really imminently homeless? If you're not so, if you've got a few weeks until you may be put out, then perhaps we can send you to an eviction prevention program where we can give you cash assistance to pay your rent payment. If it's really kind of in the next 24 hours or even in the next couple of weeks, then we may be talking to you about, well, what do you really need? Is your mom live in Florida and really what you need is a bus ticket to get back home to be reunified to your family? Okay, let's pay for that bus ticket. If it's, oh, yes, you just have this medical bill, let's help pay for that medical bill so that you don't have to leave your housing and go into shelter. The biggest thing is if you can avoid them even going into the homeless shelter in the first place, that's obviously the best for all involved because as Councilman Jones said, many of the individuals, particularly going into our family shelters, are families. If you think about a young child going into a shelter with 200 other individuals around is not a calming experience. At best, it is a very energizing experience, which if you have a number of toddlers, anyone who has children knows that can be quite a ramped-up experience in and of itself, let alone when you have a lot of them around. So if we can avoid going into shelter, that is the best situation. The second piece of it is our average length of stay in our shelters. The federal government wants us to be at 90 days. We are currently, for this fiscal year, at 67 days on average staying in a shelter. We've been as low as 61 last year, but our average of the last 3-4 years is around 65 days in shelter. And as Pete said, we have also really ramped up our permanent housing, exits to permanent housing. We're currently at 79%. The national average was around 22%. So we are really pushing permanent supportive housing in this county, and that's because of a lot of programs that we have established. But each one of those programs, we have certain permanent supportive housing programs that are really for chronic mental illness, and you have to have some sort of disabling condition to be in those particular housing programs. Then we have others with rapid rehousing where we're just trying to get you back into housing and stabilized. We have veterans. That's a big push right now from the federal government. We're not actually as high on veterans homeless lists as some of our other jurisdictions, but that is something. All of these numbers, I think when I first started, we all thought of homelessness as more male. That has really changed. It's become much more families. But that ebbs and flows, and there are times where we have a group of single women, it may be, that go up or down at the homeless shelters. And so it really is no one single component that makes an individual homeless. It's usually a combination of lack of resources, lack of relationships with other individuals. One thing the county's also been really good at, and part of the reason we've been able to exit so many people to permanent housing, is we continue to build relationships with landlords, both at large complexes but also small individual landlords around the country who learn about our programs and learn about the people exiting shelter and how we try to attach case management to them as well. And so therefore, when people go into shelter, they have somebody to call. Or I'm sorry, not into shelter. When they go into housing from shelter, they have somebody to call if there's a problem, and they know that the county is helping these people and wants them to succeed.
Thank you, Council. Thank you, and thank you, Councilman Jones. I stand corrected. I would just amend my comment to say that while I'm not a clinician, 2 of the 3 homeless people living in the commercial areas appear to have some mental health issue. But again, I'm not a clinician. And thank you for an excellent explanation.
Yeah. I guess want to, if I could, I guess want to apologize to my colleague. In no way did I mean to put you in the spot. I guess the only point I was making was we as a society, so many times we see the people on the street and we think that that is the face of the homeless population. Well, that's the face that we see. What we don't see is all of those families that are homeless, that don't stand on the street corner with a shopping cart, but they truly don't have a place to go. So I apologize, I didn't mean any disrespect to you.
Councilwoman Bevins?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you so much for that explanation. I'm going to say back in 2004, 5, and 6, in my early days of constituent services, I had the pleasure of working with Mary Harvey. And I would go out with Liz Glenn, Terry Kinginger, and Jeannie Ann Ferguson into the woods and into the libraries and anywhere I could to try to count the homeless folks in eastern Baltimore County. And that's not an easy task. And especially to do it in the winter months, but that's when you are most apt to find people, not in a camp, but trying to stay warm somewhere. I'm going to say Councilman Crandall and I have thousands of homeless people. Not 3, but not hundreds, but thousands. And we have camps all through our districts, and it is a real issue. You notify the police because that's what the communities want you to do because they're impeding on their property. Most times they could be. I have a camp on Martin Boulevard that's Baltimore County property. It has been cleaned up to the tune of over $500,000 over 3 years. Large trees actually had to be taken down to get the equipment in to clean it out. It was truckloads, tons and tons and tons taken out. The homeless people came back in a couple weeks. I mean, it's an issue. We don't want to run people out. We don't want the county taking all their possessions. But when you have a street backing up to that homeless camp, that's an issue. And the police, look, they have other things to do, and they're not really so good at getting a grip on that, or the panhandlers, which is against the law in Baltimore County. Every day we have to deal with that on most of our intersections. I appreciate the new East Side Center. It's beautiful. If you haven't been to it, I feel like a family could go in there and you would not be scarred for life knowing you were ever in a homeless shelter. It's a beautiful facility. However, now I'm hearing there's an increasing rise of men that they don't have room, they don't take because of so many families. Is that true? That don't have anywhere to go? Or you're still taking single men at the shelter?
So on the east side, we have 2 dedicated men's shelters. And one is on the west side, and then the other's on the east side. The east side shelter for men is much smaller than the west side. The west side.
Is it in the eastern?
Yes, so it's on the second floor
It's on
of
the
the
second floor,
east side shelter. It's got a capacity for 50,
Right.
but that was with the expectation of the 50 would be with Code Blue. That the
Okay.
operating on a regular basis was supposed to be about 15.
Right.
And so that has, from what I understand, that has not been fully occupied every night. So I'm not sure about the being turned away.
Yeah, I'm not so sure either, but that's what I'm hearing. And I can relate to everybody's concerned, whether it's mental health, whether it's they just don't want to go. I mean, I have a large group of men that say, I get a check, but I don't want a house, and I like this lifestyle, and the police don't know how to deal with them. When they really have a medical emergency, they do take them over to Franklin Square, they get treatment, and then they're released. We don't want these people arrested because, it just, they get a citation, they can't pay it, they're not going to show up for court, so it's just a waste of everybody's time, so it's really about better solutions. So I appreciate all the effort that's been made by the health department and planning in trying to fight homelessness. And I wish it was something we could totally wrap our brain around, and one day I'd like to see no one homeless. I don't know that that'll happen in my lifetime, but we certainly struggle with it on the east side. I can give you an example. We had a homeless camp behind a farm store that was down 13% in revenue because people stopped coming in because of the panhandling and being so close to the camp. So between CSX and the police, they went in and they cleared out that camp. But what was interesting is they had a cash machine installed at this farm store that no one would use. because they were so afraid to go to the ATM and get cash, because people automatically, I guess, think homeless, I'm going to get robbed, I don't know. So it can be a problem for businesses, especially small businesses. So I wish we could figure out a way to, get resources to really get folks in and let them know about all the services. We have great services in Baltimore County for them to take advantage of. But I'm certainly so very grateful for the family shelter now. It's like I said, it was so nicely done. I know it was a headache to get done. I was a part of all that between MedStar and Fred, but it got done. So thank you for that, and thank you for all your work.
Councilman Jones?
Councilwoman Bevins, that's because you can't tell people you don't have any money if you just walked away from the bank machine.
That's right. That's right. That's right.
No, but really, one of the things that I can say that I'm not sure if we ever thought of this, I think we have a lot of resources in Baltimore County to deal with the homeless. The location oftentimes is not conducive to where people are. So I had a case in Reisterstown where the gentleman told me his wife would go into the Hannah More shelter. We were offering him a ride to the men's shelter in Catonsville, and he said he would rather stay on the streets in Reisterstown because if he went to Catonsville, he would not be able to get back when his wife left in the morning.
Right.
So I don't know. I mean, maybe we can consider some shuttle or something when situations like that arise, because clearly here's a person that, and when I talk to one person, I can't help but wonder if there's not more out there in a very similar situation. This guy was sleeping on somebody's property. They called me. I just happened to call the police. We went there because I was close by, and I just happened to talk to the guy, and he told me he did not want to leave because he wouldn't be able to get back. And I just thought, I wonder if we were offering a shuttle, would it have made a difference? If we were to say, we'll take you down to the men's shelter, and tomorrow we'll bring you back. I don't know. Is that something you ever thought of?
I'm not sure that there's that many people who are in that same situation that would warrant a shuttle on a regular basis. We do have, all of the shelters have funding for bus tokens and that sort of thing, but obviously taking a bus is going to take a longer period of time and may not be as convenient. And I don't know in this particular situation if they were offered a spot on the east side, because the east side would take the full family. But perhaps if that was not convenient to, if he was working or she was working or something, not knowing the situation.
All right, thank you.
Other questions or comments?
She has a comment.
Oh, I'm sorry, Stacy. Ms. Rogers.
I just want to say that homelessness is one of the areas that I'm really passionate about. During my career, I've had the opportunity to oversee homeless services in all places, the District of Columbia, and a lot of what we're experiencing here in the county are issues that we have had to think about in terms of approach and how we work with families, because you're right, the individuals we're seeing on the street is just the tip of the iceberg. There are a lot of families that are couch surfing who really don't have a home of their own. They're staying with someone else because of economic issues, and this all ties back to affordable housing. So, we have to look at it across the spectrum, but I think there are other strategies that we can employ as we look case by case. This is definitely a case by case kind of situation in terms of how we work with individuals and meeting them where they are and helping them to get what they need so that they can be self-reliant. So I assure you this is an area that's high on my radar with the planning group, with the health department, with mental health services, and with Dr. Branch, because it's going to take a collective effort to come up with innovative strategies for what we need here in the county. But it's real here in the county, more so than people realize it. It's a real thing.
I had a question, is from an organizational perspective for Department of Planning, how are we currently organized, and do you anticipate any changes over the next 3, 6, 12 months? Just trying to make sure I understand the organizational.
I do not at this point in time. I haven't even have gotten barely touched or scratched the surface of the department, so I would have to start looking at that and come back to you and let you know, I mean, of any changes. So
But you have three deputies right now, or
it's 3 divisions,
3 divisions?
4 divisions, I'm sorry, 4 divisions, 4 divisions.
Can you go through them again, the 4 divisions?
It's the Administrative Hearing Office, Community Development, People's Council, and Neighborhood Improvement.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, the people's, that's the 4th one. Okay. Other questions from the council for Department of Planning? Councilman Patoka.
Yes, which one of those division staffs issues that come before the planning board? Development issues.
Neighborhood.
The planning board is handled by our development review division, but depending on the issue, could be any group depending on the issue.
I see, so it would be wherever it filtered up to the planning board could come from any of the divisions.
For instance, the CZMP review of issues will be primarily covered by the community planning division,
I see.
but the development review group manages the board meetings, the agendas. So there's a mix of both, depending on the issue.
I see, thank you.
Mr. Chairman.
Any other question, Councilwoman Bevins?
I just have one. So I'm really interested in the Master Plan 2030. So what's the timeline for that?
So right now, we're probably going to, I mean, ideally, we'll finish up with the CZM process, but in the meantime, we'll start doing background research, researching issues, collecting background data, and probably start that in the next year for the public outreach process.
And what kind of process will be, like a year long, or?
It'll be at least a year.
At least a year?
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Izzy, this is your last one? Councilman Patoka?
He's new.
And he
so
likes planning, by the way.
So I worked on Master Plan 2010 with Jeff and with Amy. And back then, we were talking about modifying the time frame for when we did the master plan from just before we had census data to the period after census data came in. And I don't know if that ever happened or if that's something we plan on doing in the future.
That was what Jeff and I have already talked about. It would nice to have the census data before we start or at least complete the master plan process, so we have that data.
Because it seems like so we would be modifying it or doing an interim plan after the census data comes in. Right. Would it be beneficial for us to, and I don't know if it's something that we do or something the executive office does, to modify the time frame of when we do our master plan so that we have the...
I think it's worth a discussion. There is the American Community Survey that's done, so a lot of the basic information is done on a regular basis that you can work off of from there. So, but
is that done annually? I can't recall.
Every other year.
Every other year?
Every year.
No, it's done every year.
But the problem with that is with the American Community Survey, we're working on it 8 years out before the census is done. So we're working, so the most recent census data we have is 2010, and then there's a survey that was done in 2012, a census that was done, a survey that was done in 2014, a survey that was done in 2016, and now we're working on the 4th survey, not census, and there's a difference between a survey and census. I don't have to tell you guys that, but I just wonder if it's a huge lift to develop a master plan, and why not just do it with the best available data and hold off until the census and, you know, just change the way we've always done things.
Okay. Makes a lot of sense. I mean, it's worth a discussion.
Okay, thanks.
And then last thing I think is, I know with the A&E district, you're definitely looking for your help with a possible A&E district for the county. Patapsco Heritage Greenways look to maybe expand, so I'll need your help with that as well. And then I think every member here really wants to reiterate the need to have a dedicated person for CZMP to help us. Each of us have somebody we can really rely on and have as our person to help us with the different issues, because it's clearly going to be pretty time consuming pretty soon. Anything else? All righty. Well, thank you so much.
All right.
Appreciate it. Anybody need a quick break before fire, or we just go right in? All right, let's just keep going. Yeah, we could now call up the fire department. Mr. Bostwick, do we know who brought in that dessert, like in the back? They